Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Welcome back to our show and welcome JC.
Wendy, it's a pleasure to be back, and it's a pleasure to hear from the listeners out there. As you already know, if you're tuning in on podcast radio in the U.S., you can find us in Detroit on 93.5 FM and WCSX 94.7 HD2. Tampa on 1010 WHFS AM, and Charlotte on 94.7 FM and WSOC HD3. And a big shout out to our friends and family down in Fort Myers, Naples on 96.5 FM, 101.5 FM, 105.1 FM, and WXKB HD2. Wendy, it's time to rock and roll.
Thank you so much for letting everybody know about the podcast radio that we're on as well. And we are here today to talk about a very timely subject. And we want to talk about exploring the art of helping your team members achieve peak productivity without succumbing to burnout. And let me just tell you, our guest today is going to help us with this. And John, I am burnt out. I, Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, I'm so burnt out. However, I am going to vacation in a few days. So I'm hoping to maybe calm that down a little bit. But with that said, welcome, John Verrico. How are you?
I am doing great. You know, if it were any better, I'd have to be twins to enjoy it.
Hey, I know you talk a lot about you're a speaker, you're a trainer, a coach, motivational leader. You work on team building and something about sharing your fire. You know, what's going on with you these days?
What isn't going on with me these days? So I retired from my full-time day job, and now I'm able to do this stuff that I'm so passionate about even more. And so, you know, I've been involved with a bunch of different groups and trying to just help people avoid burnout in their life and in their work. And I'm just so passionate about it. One of the things that, you know, we realize is that when people get burned out, they start kind of spiraling. And, you know, they kind of lose focus and they lose mission. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, that they could be on the brink of despair or disaster. And so I've really been getting involved with actually a brand new nonprofit called Fighters for Hope. And what we're doing is trying to spread the word about mental health awareness and suicide prevention and all of that stuff to try to help people, you know, who are circling the drain, so to speak, and you know, on that brink of despair. And so I'm very passionate about it and very passionate about trying to help people get to that point in the first place. So I'm so glad you reached out so we can talk about stuff about how to keep folks from burning out in the first place and kind of what burnout looks like. And I'm sorry to hear that you're a burnout. I mean,
yeah, you know, it's self-driven. I work for myself, so I got no one to blame but myself. But you know, I'm rolling out a new program, just, you know, burning the night owl oil at all ends and probably not getting enough sleep. But I am going on vacation in a couple of days. So I'm at least smart enough to say, all right, I need to step back and this stuff can wait. Will I work on vacation? A little bit, but for the most part, I'm going to try not to. So, you know, go ahead, JC. You have a question?
Not a question, but I do have a stat when you're ready, because I'm ready to kick this off deep, Wendy. Look, a survey by the American Psychological Association, the APA, found that 79% of employees experienced work-related stress, with nearly 3 in 5 reporting negative impacts of work-related stress, including lack of interest, motivation, or energy and lack of effort at work. That's not even mentioning what happens at home, but that's the story for another time. Back to the two of you.
Yeah, John, what do you think about those statistics? 79% of employees experience work-related stress, which then, you know, went into their personal life. And I personally, the energy is where I'm hurting this week. That's for sure.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's a very unfortunate fact that our work environments, especially in this country, kind of lead to this. We have such a tendency and a drive to push. And, you know, I'm just as bad. I have what my wife refers to as helium arm, right? Every time something needs to be done or somebody needs something done, I'm like, my arm goes up. I can do it. I can help with that. You know, just keep that arm just keeps floating up. Sure, I'll do it. You know, and I should take a lesson from my time in the military. You know, I was a Navy guy. Navy's an acronym for never again volunteer yourself. But all of that said, it is so true. And people tend to push themselves because they feel they are expected to do so. And there is such a stigma around potential failure that they just, they don't want to deal with that. And it really, the boss sets the environment, right? And how you create the environment for people to feel like they're making a difference and feel like they matter. Because if somebody feels like they're actually doing something worthwhile, they won't get burned out. Or,
Yeah,
I mean, unless they just do too much, like, do. And, did I say
Yes.
doo-doo on, did I say doo-doo on the air?
You did. You said do, but that's okay. It's you know what? The counteraction of burnout is laughter, in my opinion. So we're good to go. We're getting our audience laughing. But it is, I love the analogy that you gave about the helium arm, because my significant other also informed me that I don't need to volunteer for every single thing that happens in the world. And so I'm working on that myself as well. Talk to me
I have to briefly, I told my wife, I said, my Toastmasters club asked me if I would accept a nomination to be president of the club. And she looked at me and I said, "You'll be very proud of me." I told them, "No, I've got too much on my plate." And she says, "I'm proud of you. You finally, said no." So at the next Toastmasters meeting, they nominated and elected me president. And I came home with basically my head in my hands going, "They elected me president." And she just laughed.
I have more to do now.
Of course. But, we do this, right? Because we feel like there's an expectation. We don't want to let people down. If they ask us to do something, we feel badly if we say no. And of course, if it's in the workplace, then we're worried about repercussions if we say no, or if we start to set boundaries. And that's always risky, because you just don't know what the reaction is going to be, right?
One of the interesting parts about what you both just said, though, you were talking about significant other and you were talking about wife. The stats I had before were specific to work, John, but to support the home life here, a study published by the Journal of Marriage and Family found that job stress and burnout significantly contribute to marital tension and conflicts. About 50% of those surveyed couples reported that work-related stress has caused serious issues in their relationship. Back to you.
Wow.
I could listen to his voice all day. Stacey, you've got the best voice, man.
Yeah, what? And he uses that voice all over the place. He has his own podcast called Interesting Things with JC, which are just 2 to 5 minute episodes every day. And he's also a MC for conferences. So anybody who's listening and needs an MC, please consider reaching out to JC. With that said, I want to go back to talking about burnout in a minute here. John, help our listeners understand what are some signs of burnout, specifically in the workplace, so that they can be looking out for their team to help their team, which then in the end will help the bottom line.
Yeah, you can see burnout starts to show up in a lot of different ways, where things just start to slip. Maybe the quality of work starts to slip. Maybe the attendance or punctuality starts to slip. People seem to care less when they start getting that burned out feeling. And really that starts when people feel like they no longer have control about what is happening. Or they just become bored with what they're doing. They're not given an opportunity to grow, or they kind of are hitting a brick wall, right? There's no promotion opportunity. I'm not going to get a raise. I'm not going to go anywhere. As soon as you start feeling like you're not going anywhere and you're not enjoying the work that you're doing, or the work becomes so routine that it's no longer interesting, that starts to lead down that path. I just was speaking with a bunch of, and I was public affairs when I was in the government. And was in that career field for 42 years. I hate to say that out loud because I feel ancient. But
you don't look it, John. You don't look it.
I know I look a lot older. Anyway, but we were talking about this feeling that, a lot of times public affairs personnel, especially in a crisis situation, they've got to go and get up in front of the news cameras and, make announcements and all of that. Yeah. If they get to a point where they're no longer are feeling empathy for the victims in a disaster scenario, but they're just kind of delivering their emergency messaging, that's a big flag, right? If you can no longer relate to folks, it's a big flag. When you stop caring about the quality of your work and you get to the point, and I never used this expression and I hated what people did, but when I was, like I said, I worked in government and they said, "Oh, it's close enough for government work." right?
Ouch.
Means it meets the minimum requirement. You don't want the minimum requirement. You want people to go beyond that. I was fortunate enough. I worked with one organization that encouraged people to take risk and to try new things. They removed the fear of failure. And they said they took 10% of their budget and put it towards projects that they were pretty sure were going to fail.
Wow.
And they said, do your best, because if this can work, if you can make this work, it could be a game changer.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, that's fine. We learn from it and we move on to what we know we can try next. It was amazing. People would, and you know what? Those high risk projects didn't fail because people tried really hard to make them work. And that was so beautiful about it. Unfortunately, you don't keep the same boss all the time. Things happen. A new boss came in and they were like, we're not going to spend any time or money on projects that aren't going to work. We need to have results. We need results. And they started just controlling all the projects and micromanaging them and saying, we're not going to take any risks. You're going to do this and
Wow.
you're going to make this work. And we're only going to do projects that we know that you can succeed at.
You want to talk about a mental health problem right there then, John. I mean, you're going from the realm of being able to fail early, fail fast, experiment, try to go outside the bounds and the box and push those boundaries and get creative. And then now you're back, you're confined. What does that do to the mind? What does that do to the soul?
Right.
Exactly. You're no longer contributing. You're just, performing.
Yeah.
And so mental health just drops. Your drive just drops. You get burned out really quick because there's no reason to do any better. I think one of the worst things that happened in society was when we went to that kind of everybody gets a trophy scenario, right? It didn't matter whether you did well or not. Everybody got the same. So there was no impetus for anybody to improve, because they weren't going to get any more or less. And the people who were just doing the bare minimum or even failing completely without even performing, they were still getting the same pay and the same reward and the same recognition. Why should I bother? There was nothing to encourage them to improve and nothing to encourage me to keep up that high level.
Wow. I want to have another stat here from the same source that JC was mentioning before, the American Psychological Association. They found that employees experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety reported a 46% reduction in productivity.
Oh, wow.
So if you're killing their soul slowly by not letting them learn things, try things, take some risks, they're certainly going to have anxiety for sure. Definitely some form of stress, even though everybody handles stress differently. But a 46% reduction in productivity. Hello, people. Hello. That's a lot.
Yeah. So you got a 46% reduction in productivity, and you've got 79% of people that are no longer even engaged because they're burned out. What are you doing? Where's your product? Where's your product? Where's your customer service? You're not going to move your company or your organization forward at all.
John, at that point, you're not catching flies with honey or vinegar. You're just killing all the flies.
Right. That
Brutal.
sadly is a really good way to put it. It really is. Hey, John, in your expert opinion, give our listeners one or two pieces of advice or tips or tricks that they can do via, leadership and team building and communication to help stall or prevent or fix burnout.
So there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The first cue that I would give is that instead of micromanaging people, trust them. You hired them for a reason. You hired them because of their skills. Let them do their job. Trust that they will do their job. And then also act in a trustworthy manner. If you're going to promise them you're going to do something, do so. If you're going to support their project, do it. If you're not going to support their project, let them know. Have an open, honest, and trustful environment. So trust is that first piece. The second piece of that, I would say, is empower people. And that means give them the opportunity to try new things. Let them take a little bit of risk. I mean, obviously, every environment's a little bit different, right? But allow them the opportunity to learn and grow and try new things, or just to put their own flavor on stuff so that they care about the project that they're doing. The next piece of that, I would say, is going to be hold people accountable. Make sure there's an accountability across the board. So then when people aren't doing their part, they're held accountable for it and other people see that. And when they are doing their part and they are doing over and above and they're really performing well, they are recognized for that. And then the very last piece of all of this is make sure that people feel like that what they do matters.
I love it. So have an open, honest, trusting environment, empower your people, trust your people, hold them accountable, of course, and then recognize when they're doing things well. I absolutely
make
love
sure
it.
they matter. So you know what that is? That's an acronym: trust, empowerment, accountability, and matter.
Love it. Love it. John, thank you so much for being here today and for giving us this information. I think JC wants to close this up by bragging about your contact information.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had the opportunity yet, stop by johnverrico.com. I do believe that he's welcome to accept your emails. That's john@johnverrico.com, or as in his signature line, feel free to give him a call. 240-257-NERD. That's 240-257-NERD. John, did I get that right?
You got it right. And for those people that don't understand that there is an alphabet on phones, it is 6373. But yeah, you just like saying the nerd part, don't you?
I do, actually,
Yes.
yeah. I wanted to give you a
Yes, we
clean
all
cut,
do.
too, if you want to segment that out. Feel free to use it. It's all yours.
Absolutely. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here today. Thank you again, John. We hope this information has been helpful. Take care.